Okay, we're continuing with the book here, The Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by Pete Rogers, alphabetical order. Robert McKee, he was born in 1941, and he's a writer who teaches a lot of people about story writing, storytelling, and he's got a lot of good lines. He says, when you've done enough research, the story almost writes itself. Yeah, so it's good to always over-prepare. Prepare that you're well enough, you know it well enough not only to give a presentation, but also to answer all the questions. And once you prepare quite extensively, it's good to have a conversation with somebody about it. And then that conversation sort of helps your brain organize the order of which you'll describe things, based on the experience of the person's response. Talent is like a muscle. Without something to push against, it atrophies. And that's, I think, is also true. I notice that people will send me, viewer comments or emails about such and such, somebody else, some other plant or some other nutrition person saying something that they think is wrong, and I'll think it's wrong too. And it's almost like I see all these high-fat phonies, I see all these paleo, keto carnivores, and it motivates me. I sort of feel like, well, hey, what I'm doing is useful. If everybody on the internet was teaching the low-fat vegan diet, then they wouldn't need me to do it. But the fact that almost nobody's doing it, they're hiding the truth of the past, what we learned from Kempner and Pritikin and McDougall and all these other guys, motivates me that it's worth doing, so I keep doing it. So you kind of need that problem. And even though I'm pissed off, I'm ostracized, it still motivates me. So I got good energy for this because it's fun and it feels useful. Good story is something worth telling that the world wants to hear. Yeah, I got lots of good ideas, but nobody cares about them. So I sort of use the judgment. What does the audience want that I also want to talk about? They have to be there. I'll talk about stuff that even if they don't, if I think there's some people who want it. Like I do all my art, culture, and literature stuff, and I know there's tons of people who like it, but it just doesn't get shown to them. I figure someday it'll all be there if they want to see it. Okay, stories build cultures by answering the big questions, like the Bible does. And that's actually a great point. How does one answer a question? What is the value of a human life? Well, it depends. If you live in an atheistic Darwin society, it's not much. If you live in a Christian culture where man is created in the image of God, then it's worth a lot in terms of how society views him. Okay, the mark of a master is to select only a few moments, but to give us a lifetime. Yeah, because they know what matters. I can teach a medical student more in 1 hour than they learned in, all of pre-med and all of med school combined, because most of what they learn in pre-med and med school is a joke. Whereas I'll tell them just good stuff straight for an hour. Even if they've done a full residency, it's the same story. They don't learn what matters, Okay, above all else, beyond imagination and skill, what the world wants most, what it asks of you most as a writer is courage. Courage to risk rejection, ridicule, and failure. Okay, that's a little like Thomas Shaw said. He said the key to, good thinking is not so much intelligence, it's courage. You have to get past all the BS. Because there's endless BS. There's always BS trying to sell things. When money gets involved, the truth shuts up. Okay, here he now says, anxious and inexperienced writers obey rules. Rebellious, unschooled writers break rules. An artist masters the form. Yeah, when it's funny to break a rule, so you should do it. Stories are the currency of human relationships. And there's truth in that, too. It's like whatever happens when I see one of my guy friends that I haven't seen, in days, weeks, months, even years sometimes. We start telling each other a story. Hey, did you hear about this? Isn't this funny? Or isn't this interesting? Stories are the currency of human relationships. To connect with people at the deepest level, you need stories. Right, yeah. Abstract stuff doesn't really move a person emotionally. Storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world. Yeah, there's somebody else who had the quote. I don't remember who had the quote, but they said, the brain is not a logic processor. The brain is a story processor. So that's how we expect information. Next quote from Robert McKee. A story is a way to convert a life experience into meaning. Yeah, that's good. And I've also heard it said, too, that, and I know it's true, the best scientists, the best doctors, when they write a paper or write a book chapter, it's often in the form of a story, a narrative. That's interesting to read. Like a perfect example is that Douglas Kell, PhD guy from England, and he wrote a paper called Iron Behaving Badly, all about ferrous redox cycling in the blood. But the fact he called it iron behaving badly and he described why that is, how it can be good, doing what it's supposed to in normal amounts, but when a person's iron overloaded, it behaves badly with the ferrous redox cycling, causing oxidative stress, causing amyloid transformation of your fibrinogen clotting protein in the blood and making you prothrombotic. Okay, that was a great way to write that paper. I think that guy's a brilliant scientist. I think he deserves a Nobel Prize. Him and Etheresia Pretorius, the South African lady from that did all that work on blood and amyloid clotting. Okay, let's continue with these quotes here by Robert McKee. He says, a story is a way to convert a life experience into meaning. All right. The point of a story is to help you find meaning in life. Now, that's a good one. The point of a story is to help you find meaning in life. Yeah, that's what we basically say when we talk to a friend. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell them a story. Okay. Stories are a vehicle that carries us on our search for reality. I would say our search for truth. And so what that means is, like when I'm trying to understand something, let's say I'm trying to understand atherosclerosis, say, okay, here's what happens with the Wynne-Kessel effect. Here's what happens with the hypertension at a bifurcation where the high pressure flow has increased turbulence, increased retrograde eddy currents. Here's how it induces a prothrombotic endothelial lining, okay, by causing the glycocalyx to be shed. And then here's what happens when the WBCs come in. Here's what happens when the RBCs come in. So I'm basically formulating a story and constantly trying to approach absolute truth, which you approach asymptotically as you get closer and closer to it. You never get perfect truth, but you get as close to it as you can. You get to meaningful, useful truth, actionable truth on which you can act in a good way. So a story is helps us to find meaning in life. Okay. Next thing, stories are how we remember things. We tend to forget lists and bullet points. Okay. We process our case file of knowledge, and the most important thing is what causes what. That's what you need to know. That's how the highest level experts interpose. They intercede on, let's say, a pathophysiological process. Know where to intercede. Know how to prevent it, because you know what causes it. Your goal should be a story well told. Okay, so that was good stuff by Robert McKee on stories. I hope you found that helpful.